Chess is often misunderstood as a game about checkmate. In theory, yes, that is the goal, to trap your opponent's king and win the game. But in reality, checkmate is rarely the most interesting part. Most games are controlled by finding the right pressure points and noticing when your opponent makes any misjudged moves. What actually determines the outcome of most games is not a single decisive moment, but a gradual narrowing of options. So, one can say that chess is a game about control, about who dictates the shape of the game long enough for the other player to make a mistake. Chess is what we call a closed system game. Since there is no randomness, no hidden information, no outside interference, both players can see the entire board at all times. Every move that is made is intentional, well, at least it should be, and every decision permanently alters the game. Because of this, chess is just as much psychological as it is logical. Players are not simply calculating outcomes, they are interpreting each other's motives, testing each other, and applying pressure wherever possible. The board becomes this sort of place where your ego, insecurity, and patience are constantly being negotiated. Two concepts matter more than almost anything else when playing chess: initiative and tempo. Initiative refers to who is calling the shots. A player with initiative forces the opponent to respond, shaping the flow of the game and limiting the other player's options. Tempo refers to the pace. Gaining tempo means making moves that improve your position while forcing the opponent to spend time reacting instead of advancing. These ideas matter because chess is a game that rewards restraint and punishes desperation. Aggressive strategies do not always guarantee success. In fact, many are objectively unreliable. These strategies usually succeed not because they are correct, but because the attacker needs to intimidate the other player. When you use aggressive tactics like this, it can be interpreted as a kind of confession. It reveals the player's fear, impatience, and need for control. And then there is the stalemate. Stalemate occurs when a player is not in check, but has no other moves left. The game ends not because someone has won, but because the position has become unplayable. No progress is possible without making things worse. Stalemate is often dismissed as anticlimactic and stupid, but it may be the most interesting ending in the entire game. It acknowledges exhaustion. It acknowledges the limits of control. Malcolm and Marie is a 2021 film written and directed by Sam Levinson, best known for creating the hit show Euphoria. It stars Zendaya reuniting with Levinson after that series, alongside John David Washington. The film was written and produced during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, becoming the first Hollywood feature approved to shoot during the lockdown. The film is also constructed as a closed system. Do you see where I'm going with this? There are only two characters in one house on one night. There are no subplots, no supporting cast, and certainly no relief from the central conflict. Every scene is an interaction, and every interaction is consequential. Like a chessboard, the environment is deliberately restrained so that the shifts in tone of the film are visible and unavoidable. The film opens with Malcolm and Marie returning home after the premiere of Malcolm's film. Malcolm is energized and hyped for the release of this new film. Marie is the polar opposite. She is quiet and withdrawn. The dynamic mirrors the opening phase of a chess game, where control is established. Malcolm immediately takes the center of the metaphorical, emotional chessboard. He fills the space with his voice, his opinions, and his momentum. Marie, on the other hand, does not challenge him directly. She waits. In chess, restraint is often mistaken for passivity, but in reality, it is a great way to apply pressure. When one player refuses to reveal their plan, the other often begins to narrate the game for the both of them. they tend to push and overextend themselves in hopes of getting a response from the other player. Malcolm's dominance at the beginning of the film creates the illusion of control, but all it really does is expose his position. The more space he takes up, the more there is to lose. As Malcolm starts to gloat about the events of the evening, he goes on a long rant about film criticism. The film in question is about a 20-year-old girl named Imani, who is recovering from a drug addiction. He argues that his film is not political, and that critics are desperate to frame his work through sociological and political lenses just because he is a black male director. And he insists that this impulse says more about them than about the art itself. This scene alone explains why the film has been so polarizing with both fans and critics. For some viewers, the monologue reads as this sharp, self-aware commentary on the way art is flattened by interpretation. For others, it feels defensive, self-indulgent, and impossible to separate from its writer. Many critics and audiences alike have argued that Sam Levinson, who, like I said, wrote and directed the film, is using Malcolm as a mouthpiece to air his own grievances about how his work has been received. And while I may think that's true, what matters more to me in this video is not whether the monologue is a self-insert or not, but rather where it is placed and how it functions in the story. This scene happens in the first 10 minutes of the entire film. Sam intentionally put it right at the beginning as a way to set the tone for the dynamics we're about to witness unfold between our two main characters. Malcolm is not simply talking about critics, he is trying to assert control over the interpretation itself. He wants to define what his work is allowed to mean, and by extension, what kind of responses are deemed valid. Marie's reaction, or rather her initial lack of reaction, is crucial. She does not immediately challenge him. She lets the monologue breathe, and in doing so, she allows Malcolm to overextend himself. The longer he talks, the more rigid his position becomes. The more he insists that his work is apolitical and misunderstood, the clearer it becomes that control, not clarity, is what he is actually protecting. This sequence sets the tone for the rest of the night. The first clear shift occurs in the kitchen, when Marie is making him some late-night mac and cheese, where she reveals the central issue of the film, the fact that Malcolm forgot to thank her in his speech. She doesn't yell or scream at him. It's not even framed as an attack. She is simply asserting that something important was overlooked. After some heated words are exchanged and Marie presses him for genuine acknowledgement, Malcolm apologizes. The tension briefly dissolves and they become affectionate and even playful with each other. This is the first of several moments throughout the film that really shows us the reasons why they are even together in the first place. What's that expression people say all the time? When it's good, but when it's bad? You can tell that they have a real intimacy with each other, but these moments never really resolve anything. They function more as pauses instead of resolutions. This pattern repeats itself throughout the night. The arguments heat up, then cool down. Each break from their bickering feels like the end of the conflict, only for it to rear its ugly head from another angle. The relationship moves a lot like a roller coaster, climbing up towards reconciliation just for it to drop back down again into confrontation. The love they share is real, but it's constantly being interrupted. When Marie later steps outside to smoke a cigarette, Malcolm resumes the argument, questioning her behavior and framing it as rejection. When she tells him that he's the neediest guy she's ever dated, he immediately escalates the situation by bringing up her past addiction, suggesting that she should be grateful to him for sticking by her while she was in rehab and helping her get clean. This is another turning point. The argument shifts from disagreement into leverage, and gratitude becomes his weapon. Marie responds by accusing Malcolm of using her life experience as good material for his work, arguing that he lacks a distinct voice and borrows credibility by aligning himself with filmmakers like Spike Lee and Barry Jenkins. This is one of the first moments where Malcolm's confidence is truly bruised. The position he's been defending begins to destabilize. At the same time, something else is happening beneath the surface. One of the most important truths about chess is that the longer a game goes on, the less control either player truly has. Earlier in the game, the number of possible outcomes is low. The reason openings are studied is because patterns repeat themselves. There are only 20 possible opening moves. But with every move, the number of possibilities multiplies exponentially. Each decision creates new branches, new vulnerabilities, and new ways to attack. By the mid-game, no player can possibly calculate everything. Marie retreats into the bathtub. Malcolm follows, not to reconcile, but to retaliate. He tells her that Imani is based on multiple ex-girlfriends, and that the only part of the character Marie influenced was the drug-induced breakdown at the end of the film. The intent here is clear, that Malcolm mirrors Marie's earlier attack in an attempt to regain control. He also brings up the fact that Marie, due to the trauma she's faced in her life, confuses being loved with being needed, and that she cannot accept love that is not rooted in dependence. After this emotionally charged moment, once again the tension eases, and Malcolm fixates on the LA Times review they've been waiting all night to be released, eventually erupting again over the critics' interpretation of his film as a political statement. He rejects the reading outright, insisting that his film was never meant to be political. This scene echoes his opening monologue and reinforces his need to control not only their relationship, but also the meaning of his work. After another brief return to intimacy, Marie asks the question that fundamentally changes the shape of the entire evening. Why didn't Malcolm cast her as Imani? Malcolm claims that he didn't think she wanted the role, and of course Marie rejects this explanation. She argues that he didn't want to share the attention, that he wanted the work to look like it came entirely from him. This, to me, reframes the conflict completely. What had initially appeared to be about gratitude is really about power. Marie's response is not to argue further, but to demonstrate. She approaches Malcolm holding a kitchen knife and launches into a monologue implying that she has relapsed, that she has slept with his friends, that her mental state has unraveled completely. You can see the terror and horror in Malcolm's eyes. His confidence evaporates into thin air. You can honestly cut the tension in this scene with the knife she's holding. This is no longer an argument he can talk his way out of. For a moment, the film lets both Malcolm and the audience believe this is real. Then suddenly, Marie stops. She drops the act, revealing it was a performance. She wasn't trying to prank him, it was just her way of proving a point. She shows Malcolm exactly why she would have been perfect as Imani. She understands the character because she has lived inside that darkness. The cruelty of this move is undeniable, but so is its precision. This scene is some of my favorite acting I've ever seen from Zendaya. The moment reminds me a little of Rue, the character she plays in Euphoria, another addict navigating relapse and recovery. So addiction is not unfamiliar territory for her as a performer. But what makes this scene extraordinary is that Marie is performing a relapse as Imani, which means Zendaya is performing as Marie, performing as Imani. Like a Russian doll, it's a character within a character, a performance inside a performance. This scene excellently demonstrates Marie's central claim throughout the film, that Malcolm failed not only to recognize her pain, but her ability. The most obvious connection you all must be thinking between Malcolm and Marie and chess is its use of black and white. Chess is black and white, the film is black and white. Easiest metaphor in the book, right? But if you look a little deeper, this choice becomes much more interesting the longer the film goes on. I don't believe the absence of color simplifies the story at all. Actually, quite the opposite. By removing color, the film forces us to focus on contrast, positioning, and movement. Faces, shadows, and distance suddenly matter way more. Now you're always more aware of where the characters are standing, how close they are, who is advancing, and who is retreating. Without color to soften the image, everything becomes about opposition and balance, light and dark, stillness and motion. But the film is careful not to assign moral value to either side. Black and white doesn't equal good and evil here. They're simply forces in tension, yin and yang. The cinematography reinforces this. Much of the film is shot handheld, which creates this sense of instability. The camera feels reactive, almost nervous, like it's responding to the tension between them rather than controlling it. Sometimes this instability is interrupted by smoother dolly shots at key points in the film. And when the camera suddenly steadies, it usually coincides with a character believing they've regained control. Costuming works in a similar way. Malcolm's wardrobe is relatively consistent. Darker tones, structured silhouettes. He dresses like someone who wants to occupy space confidently and remain fixed in his position. Marie, on the other hand, is more fluid. Her looks shift throughout the night, sometimes softer, sometimes sharper, sometimes blending into the environment, sometimes cutting through it. After the breakdown scene, the conflict loses its momentum. The arguments don't stop, but they no longer escalate. Instead, they kind of circle around the same issues over and over again. The energy of the night has been spent. There is nothing left to gain by pushing any further. The film ends the morning after. Malcolm wakes up and finds Marie gone. He searches the house, and when he finally finds her outside, the camera keeps its distance. They stand together, side by side, facing away from the audience. There's no dramatic confrontation and no final conclusion. We see that Marie says something to Malcolm, but we don't hear it. The film withholds the last piece of dialogue, denying us the clarity we've been trained to expect. Nothing is resolved, nothing is explained. The relationship is not repaired, but it is not definitively broken either. What we're left with is stillness. In the end, nobody wins. They've exhausted each other and the audience. Their fight didn't escalate into a decisive checkmate, but instead settled into something far more ambiguous, a stalemate. No one is in check, no one is victorious, but the board is frozen. The emotional landscape has been so thoroughly mined that the only safe option is to stop moving altogether. And perhaps this is what Malcolm and Marie is trying to tell us, that in love, like in chess, control is fleeting, and the illusion of it often collapses under the weight of simple human emotions. The movie, like a stalemate, is deeply unsatisfying, and that's by design, because life doesn't always end with clarity. Sometimes it ends with two people staring at each other across a board, wondering how things became so complicated. And if that's not honest storytelling, I truly don't know what is. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. This is my first video of 2026, and I'm posting it right at the start of the year because I'm trying to build some momentum and actually follow through on something I keep telling myself I want to take seriously, which is making videos like this. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more essays like it, consider subscribing. It's free, it helps the channel, and you can always change your mind later. If you want to help even more, liking the video really does make a difference, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know what you thought or what other films, shows, or ideas you'd want to see me break down next. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I genuinely appreciate your support so much. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.